Hi friends, welcome to the new series started on the channel Medi Lectures, that is Medicine Daily Dose at 10 pm. This is the season 1 of this series in which we will discuss all the aspects of COVID-19, and in this episode we will discuss microbiology and pathophysiology of the disease. There will be one question hidden anywhere between the video lecture. The top 3, the first 3 correct comments would be pinned in the comment section. There will be total 10 episodes, and the person who has been most of the times in top 3 would be the season winner of the 10 episodes. The maximum number, the person who has given the correct answer in the top 3 comments will be the season winner and will win exciting prize. So friends, starting with the first episode, the full form of COVID-19 is Coronavirus Disease 2019. The causative agent is Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome (COV2) virus, which is a virus of family Coronaviridae. It is a RNA virus which is single-stranded RNA. The RNA is non-segmented and positive sense. The virus is enveloped, helical in shape, and has petal-shaped projections on the surface. The 4 major proteins are E protein, that is envelope protein, M protein, that is membrane protein, S protein, that is spike glycoprotein S, and N protein, which is the nucleocapsid protein. When we consider the E protein, that is envelope protein, it is made up of lipid bilayer, in which the outer layer is formed by the host and inner layer is the virus layer. When we consider the M protein or M glycoprotein, it is responsible for transport of nutrients for the virus. It is responsible for transport of nutrients and the budding of virus. Budding, which is the mechanism of replication of this virus, the M protein is responsible. Coming on to the glycoprotein S, that is spike glycoprotein, it is responsible for the entry of the virus in the host cell with the help of ACE2 receptor in the host cell. The entry of virus is also facilitated by TMPRSS2. Finally, there is N protein, also known as nucleocapsid protein. It interferes with the host immune response. It is the one which is responsible for the virus disease activity. Now friends, coming on to the pathogenesis, the SARS-CoV-2 virus can directly affect the natural killer cells, macrophages, and dendritic cells. Also, it involves alveolar cells, that is mainly involves the type 2 alveolar cells, which are responsible for surfactant production. Both of these mechanisms leads to increased IL-6 levels. It is IL-6 is a both pro-inflammatory as well as anti-inflammatory cytokine. It is both pro-inflammatory as well as anti-inflammatory cytokine. Now this IL-6 has different effects on different organs like liver, blood vessels, and T cells and B cells. Now in liver, this IL-6 leads to increased CRP levels, increased amyloid A, increased hepcidin, which is also a inflammatory mediator, ferritin, and increased levels of fibrinogen. Now in blood vessels, this IL-6 acts on VEGF, has activation of VEGF leading to increased vascular permeability. Also, it leads to amplification of MCP1, which leads to monocyte recruitment, IL-8, which leads to neutrophil recruitment, and IL-6 itself can cause signal amplification. It increases all these signals. In blood vessels, IL-6 also leads to decreased E-cadherin, which is responsible for adhesion. This leads to loosening of cells and increased vascular leakage. Now in T cells and B cells, this IL-6 leads to activation of T helper 17 cells, CD8 cells, as well as plasma cells, and inhibits T regulatory cells, regulatory T cells. When we discuss the pathogenesis, in short, the virus has direct cytotoxic activity. Endothelial inflammation leads to decreased fibrinolysis and increased thrombin production. Therefore, it is a hypercoagulable state. There is dysregulated immune response leading to lymphopenia, decreased interferon signaling, and also there is sometimes cytokine storm. There is also dysregulation of renin-angiotensin system leading to vasoconstriction, inflammation, and increased vascular permeability. Now coming on to the serology of the infection. First, as soon as the patient gets the infection, the antigen in the body is present and it lasts for almost 28 days. The IgM antibody usually is formed by 7 days and lasts for 21 days, and IgG antibody is formed by 14 days. Now, the usual incubation period, that is median incubation period, is 5 days. Till 5 days, the patient remains asymptomatic. From 5 to 14 days, the patient is symptomatic. Then there are decline in symptoms from 14 to 21 days, and after 21 days, there is convalescence stage. So when we test for the antigen, that is by RT-PCR, IgM antibody and IgG, all the three levels can help us tell in which state the patient is currently. So let's discuss one by one. Also, when there is no antibody detected in the blood, this is known as window period. So the first condition is RT-PCR is positive, that is the virus is present. IgM is negative, that is it is less than 7 days, and IgG is negative, that is less than 7 days. So it would be less than 7 days, means preclinical stage, preclinical phase of the disease. Second condition is RT-PCR is positive, that is more than 0 days. IgM is positive, that is more than 7 days, but IgG is negative, that is less than 14 days. So it is 7 to 14 days, which is the acute infection, and the patient would be symptomatic in this phase, symptomatic. Now one very special situation, the patient usually gets RT-PCR is negative, but both IgM and IgG is positive. This will be active infection. This will be considered active infection. But since the viral load is decreased, viral load is less, therefore RT-PCR is negative, and usually it is associated with good prognosis. Now another very special situation is RT-PCR being negative, only IgM is positive, IgG is also negative. This will also be considered an active infection, but there is decreased viral load, also associated with good prognosis, and repeat RT-PCR is suggested for this. Repeat RT-PCR is suggested for this condition. When all the three markers are present, that is RT-PCR, IgM, IgG, all are present, then it is more than 0 days, more than 7 days, more than 14 days. So the infection is currently in more than 14 days, 14 to 21 days, and it is declining phase. The patient will be improving condition. Now the RT-PCR is positive, that is more than 0 days. IgM is negative, either less than 7 days or more than 21 days, and IgG is positive, that is more than 14 days. So more than 21 days and more than 14 days, so it is more than 21 days condition, more than 21 days, and the patient is in recovery state, that is convalescence. If only IgG is positive, then it is a past and healed infection. If all three are negative, then the patient is negative and he is at risk. Now coming on to what is the RT-PCR criteria followed in India. The Indian test kit targets and detects three proteins, that is envelope protein, nucleocapsid protein, and RD DP. Now, what is the RT-PCR criteria followed in India? The RT-PCR kits detects 3 of the genes, that is envelope gene, nucleocapsid gene, and RDRP gene. So the criteria which is followed in India, the screening test which uses the E gene, if it is positive, it is a non-specific test and it is used for screening test. When the E gene is positive, then N gene, test for N gene, and RP gene is done. If any one of these is positive, then the patient is said to be RT-PCR positive. Therefore, minimum 2 genes should be positive for the patient to be RT-PCR positive. For RT-PCR, there is a term known as threshold cycle, also known as CT. This means that how many number of cycles are required for the gene particles to reach the particular threshold. How many replications are required to be detected by the threshold level. So it is inversely proportional to, CT is inversely proportional to the viral load. Less is the viral load, more of the number of cycles will be required to get detected by the threshold level. And it is indirect indicator of viral particles. We can indirectly get the viral load, but these virus can be either live or dead. So it is not a criteria for management. And doesn't correlate with any kind of imaging, clinical science and other lab values. Now coming on to the stages of disease, the first stage is known as early infection phase. The virus enters through the nasal route by inhalation, and it binds to the nasal epithelial cells with the help of an receptor, ACE2 receptor. Now the second stage is pulmonary phase, and the third phase is severe hyperinflammation phase. The stage 2 and 3 are usually coexisting together in a patient whose immunity is low. In the pulmonary phase, type 2 alveolar cells are affected. Which leads to epithelial and capillary endothelial damage. There is capillary endothelial, that is blood vessel, as well as pulmonary epithelial cell damage. This leads to leukocyte recruitment, leukocytes increased, leading to pulmonary damage and hypoxia, finally leading to ARDS. Now the therapies indicated in stage 1 is mainly zinc, supportive and hydrochloroquine. In pulmonary phase, it is important to detect the pulmonary phase to give convalescent plasma and remdesivir, since it is the antiviral therapy. And in the severe hyperinflammation phase, where the body's inflammation response is so high, we will use anti-IL-6 therapy like tocilizumab. Now in a few individuals, the host inflammatory response continues to amplify and results in systemic hyperinflammation. This is known as cytokine storm, along with multi-organ dysfunction. The major mediator of cytokine storm is IL-6, and the important point is that this infection is associated with high vulnerability to the lymphocytes. Therefore, lymphocytes are highly vulnerable to this virus, and lymphocytopenia is common. Due to lymphocytopenia, there is increased NL ratio, and the NL ratio can help us detect the stress. The normal NL ratio is 1 to 3. When it is 6 to 9, it is mild stress. When it is 9 to 18, it is moderate stress, and severe stress is present if the NL ratio is coming out to be more than 18. Now monocyte and macrophage recruitment occurs in this hyperinflammatory response. Now what is D614G mutation? It is a mutation in amino acid sequence at 6 614 position of the spike protein. 614 position of spike protein. What happens is D means aspartic acid. Aspartic acid is replaced by glycine. So 97% of the world population, 97% strains in the world is this G type, G614, which is more common than the D614. Glycine is more common than the aspartic acid, and thank God. However, the G614 strain is 10 times more contagious than the D614, but it is not deadly. Therefore, mortality and death is less. If this would be a D614, then the mortality would be very higher. Now friends, this is the question of this episode. Kindly comment the correct answer. The first 3 comment answers will be correct answer will be. Now friends, this is the question of this episode. Kindly comment the answer. The first 3 correct answers will be pinned in the comment box.